Avatar is not an allegory for the colonization of America. Everyone you know is simply wrong, but I'm here to show you the truth. Let me explain. The Dunning-Kruger effect is real, and nowhere is it more apparent than with James Cameron's 2009 box office masterclass. Though the film erupted into popularity thanks to its stunning and influential visuals sponsored by the endlessly talented Blue Man Group, its thematic questions may have had an even bigger effect on modern cinematic discourse. Seemingly everyone who's seen the film has come to the same conclusion, that it is an allegory for the colonization of America. The ubiquity of this interpretation cannot be overstated, for anyone who disagrees with such an overwhelming consensus is discredited and abandoned, left to decay.
Get away! Never come back!
Even those completely uneducated in film analysis, quite unlike myself, having spent 2.5 semesters at film school, proudly flaunt this interpretation, likely to present some vestige of intellectualism. However, their lack of authenticity and validity reveals itself in these very moments because this is perhaps the most prolific misconception in all of cinema, certainly art as a whole, and only those who have undergone the requisite education and training understand this. Let's get started. So, Avatar chronicles the story of
Jake Sully,
a paraplegic military veteran who, after the death of his identical twin brother, takes a trip to the alien planet Pandora to ostensibly aid in whatever research they are conducting. However, he eventually finds himself torn between the two worlds he inhabits, his values shifting over time as he learns more about the native people. And this, not capitalism or colonization, is what really characterizes the film. As we all know, a movie can only have one theme. The most important theme cancels out the weaker ones. And as seen by a collection of events and characteristics I'll soon explain, Avatar is actually and only about duality, the dichotomous black and white nature of reality. It does not, however, support this position, the belief that the world operates in black and white, that there is no gray or moral uncertainty, but instead critiques this view of the world. It mocks those who view society from a binary perspective. And binary basically just means that it involves two things, by the way. Throughout the film, things are detailed by their relationship to other things, by how they contrast them. Perhaps the most apparent example of this is the divide between technology and nature. We start the film from a human perspective, characterized mostly by the machinery around them, the unnatural mechanized world they've built. Eventually, we move deeper into Pandora, bearing witness to its lush jungles, the beautiful and exotic flora and fauna that characterize it. Interestingly though, both of these worlds have a lot of blue in them, revealing to me that this is the focus here. Most notably, we see blue people. Now, the color blue commonly represents sadness, therefore establishing the native population of Pandora, a group characterized by their blue hue, as a reference to the real-life indigenous tragedy known as the Trail of Tears, an event in American history named for the trauma and sadness it brought, hence the tears. But if I'm being honest, this bit of symbolism feels a little out of place considering it is the movie's only reference to the real-world indigenous population, despite how many people claim this film is an allegory for their treatment. I do, however, still appreciate it. We should never forget the tragic events of the past, although I also think we should draw more attention to them than through one small example in a 2-hour movie. The entire film should have incorporated symbolism and references to the treatment of real-life indigenous people into the story somehow. I really wish they had done that, and I think it was a huge missed opportunity not to. But I'm getting off track. Continuing with the symbolism of blue, politically, blue symbolizes left-leaning perspectives, further reinforcing the film's theme around dichotomy. Let me explain. American politics have been defined by their duality, their heavily criticized two-party system that often leads to stagnation, limiting progress. Therefore, by including so much blue in the film, Avatar alludes to the corrosive divide between the Republicans and Democrats, between the right and the left, between the red and the blue. Now we return to Jake Sully, the most obvious personification of Avatar's theme. Jake is the pinnacle of dichotomy in the film. He's a Marine among scientists, a paraplegic soldier, a living brother to a dead twin. All of these present Jake as a walking contradiction, an oxymoronic embodiment of the film's ideology. And nowhere is this dichotomy more apparent than when Jake knocks away these white-looking things that I couldn't be bothered to find the name for, so I'll just call them Dandelion Seeds.
What are they? seeds of the sacred tree.
I'm still calling them dandelion seeds. Here, we see the sharp contrast between the film's two worlds. Jake, at this point, still represents humanity and its tendency for destruction and technology. The soft dandelion seeds resting on him create a feeling of cognitive dissonance in the viewer through the clash between the greedy militarism of humanity and the balanced nature of Pandora. This relationship is further emphasized as Jake knocks away the seeds, symbolizing humanity's aversion and aggression towards nature. The narrative and thematic imagery in this scene is done so well and with so much nuance that I honestly don't know which side to choose. And that's the point. As the main character, Jake's journey should act as either an endorsement or warning to the audience. Typically, a film should either support or condemn the actions of its characters, especially its protagonist. And protagonist basically just means the main character, by the way. However, in Avatar, it does neither. Instead, it presents Jake as a midpoint, a gray area, the combination of the two worlds he comes to embody over the course of the film. Essentially, the film employs Jake as political propaganda, as a promotional tool for the advancement of its ideological goals, to suggest that neither side is right, that neither side is wrong. Avatar is a subtle but effective endorsement of centrism, morally equivocating the colonizing military with the grounded natives.
But don't you think the film is supporting the native people? Like, it's clearly taking a side, right? No. You sure? I mean, because it seems...
No! Throughout the film, Jake's paradoxical nature seeps into the other characters as well, causing all sorts of ironic events. For example, a doctor gets shot. Grace, a woman whose profession revolves around life, ends up dying. Not just that, but the film even foreshadows such an exquisite example of irony with a brief interaction between her and the Colonel.
Ranger Rick, you gonna shoot me?
I can do that.
Additionally, at the beginning of the film, we hear Jake talk about how Pandora has changed the military's role, transformed them from good to bad, to opposites.
Back on Earth, these guys were army dogs, Marines, fighting for freedom. But out here, they're just hired guns, taking the money.
Here, the film once again brutally exposes and criticizes the idea of a hard binary. And binary basically just means that it involves two things, by the way. We see even more examples of the film's unapologetic disdain for uncompromising duality. The Na'vi, again a people characterized by their blue skin, fear Taruk, a large orange animal, a color directly opposite to blue. However, the artistic terminology here is that blue and orange are complementary colors. Basically, opposites complement one another, once again illustrating the centrist viewpoint the film has, this time doing so through a well-executed and subtle use of color. Through the Na'vi's relationship to Taruk, the film again suggests that both dark and light, both yin and yang, both red and blue, both Republican and Democrat, both down and up, both out and in, both books and movies are necessary, good, and bad. Absolutely exceptional. With all that I've explained, you may still be asking yourself, as if I haven't already said it, so what's the point? What's the film saying? Well, as I've shown over the last 10 minutes, the film focuses heavily on the idea of duality, making use of paradoxes, irony, and complementary colors to symbolize and further reinforce this idea. It creates all of this division to exaggerate the differences between sides and suggest that centrism is the right answer, that both the scientists and military are good and necessary, that both nature and industrialization lead to purity, that both peace and war benefit the world. The answer isn't one or the other. It's both. It's neither. We shouldn't pick a side. We should stay in the middle. Thanks for watching.